No senior in the world will believe these shocking changes that affect the human body the moment you reach 75, because they do not come with pain, warning, or symptoms. They arrive like ghosts, silent, invisible, undeniable. And what scientists have discovered in the past decade is so unsettling that aging researchers around the world are finally admitting the truth. Every person on the planet goes through the same 5 biological changes once they pass the age of 75. It does not matter if you lived like an athlete, ate like a monk, meditated every day, avoided sugar, avoided stress, took every supplement, or always felt younger than your age. None of that stops what happens next. These 5 changes activate like hidden switches buried deep within your body decades earlier. Switches you did not even know existed until the consequences begin to appear. The most frightening part is that your body does not warn you when these switches are activated. These changes happen behind the scenes, silently rewriting your health until one day something starts to feel different and you realize the process began years earlier. Doctors do not talk about this because most seniors arrive when the process is already advanced. Families do not notice the early signs because they are almost impossible to detect. And seniors themselves end up attributing everything to normal aging, when in reality these 5 changes follow a predictable biological sequence discovered in thousands of medical tests and records of adults in the United States, Europe, and Asia. And change number 2, according to a neurological study, begins damaging the brain 3 to 4 years before seniors feel even the slightest symptom, making it the most silent and also the most dangerous. In this video, we will reveal all 5 changes, and stay until the end because number 1 controls how fast your entire body ages. Reference details are in the description. Before we begin, how old are you and where are you watching from? We are reading and responding to every comment. Now, let's start with change number 5, because what really happens at 75 is something most people never discover until it is too late. But you are about to learn it now. Number 5, your sleep architecture is completely restructured. When you reach 75, your brain literally rewrites the rules of how you sleep. And this is not just about needing less sleep or waking up earlier. It is a complete restructuring of sleep cycles that affects everyone who reaches this age. Research from the Sleep Research Society shows that after 75, your brain reduces deep sleep production by up to 70%. This means that the restorative phase, when your body repairs tissues, strengthens the immune system, and consolidates memories, basically becomes a rare luxury instead of a daily guarantee. Your brain begins to produce less melatonin naturally, decreasing by about 15% each year after 75, which explains why you may find yourself fully awake at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling even though you are exhausted. The most interesting part is that your circadian rhythm, your internal clock that tells you when to sleep and wake, actually shifts earlier by about 2 to 3 hours, which explains why having dinner at 4 p.m. suddenly feels normal and why you are ready for bed while others are just starting to relax in the evening. Scientists call this advanced sleep phase syndrome, and it happens because the suprachiasmatic nucleus in your brain, basically your body's master clock, begins to operate at a different rhythm due to changes in light sensitivity and hormone production. The most impactful point is that your sleep becomes extremely fragmented, with the average 75-year-old waking between 15 to 20 times per night, although you only remember a few of these awakenings. To deal with these changes instead of fighting them, sleep experts recommend accepting this new pattern rather than resisting it, which means going to bed when you feel sleepy, even if it is 7 p.m., and using the early morning hours productively instead of lying there frustrated. Creating an ideal sleep environment becomes essential at this age, with a bedroom temperature between 15 and 19 degrees Celsius considered optimal, because your body's temperature regulation also changes after 75, making you more sensitive to heat during sleep. The timing of light exposure becomes your secret weapon. Getting bright light, preferably sunlight, within 30 minutes of waking helps reset your new biological rhythm, while avoiding screens and bright lights after 6 p.m. helps stimulate the small amount of melatonin you still produce. Many people have good results with a segmented sleep pattern, which was common before the Industrial Revolution, where you sleep for 4 hours, wake for 1 or 2 hours for light activities like reading or stretching, and then go back to sleep for another 3 to 4 hours. The key is to accept that 8 uninterrupted hours of sleep are no longer part of your reality and to work with your new sleep architecture instead of constantly fighting it, because the stress of trying to force old sleep patterns worsens fragmentation and can lead to chronic insomnia, which affects up to 60% of people over 75. Your sleep may be different, But different does not mean worse if you adjust your expectations and routines to your body's new functioning. But while you are adapting to these sleep changes, something even more intense is happening with your body's thermostat. Before we continue, show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. You cannot miss the next secret. Number 4, your internal thermostat enters permanent collapse. At 75, your body's ability to regulate temperature does not just decline, it literally breaks down, leaving you vulnerable to both heat and cold in ways that would have been unthinkable just a few years earlier. The hypothalamus, that small region of the brain responsible for temperature control, loses about 20% of its heat-sensitive neurons by age 75, which means your body literally cannot detect temperature changes as accurately as before. This explains why you may feel cold while everyone around you is comfortable, or why a mildly warm day can leave you completely fatigued and dizzy. Your sweat glands, which are the body's primary cooling system, decrease in number and efficiency by up to 40%, making it much harder to cool down once your body heats up. This explains why hospitalizations for heat stroke increase by 300% after age 75, according to CDC data. At the same time, your blood vessels lose the ability to constrict and dilate properly in response to temperature changes, a process called vasomotor adaptation, which means your body cannot direct blood flow to warm your extremities or cool itself as it once did. The layer of fat beneath your skin, which acts as natural insulation, decreases by about 30% after age 75, leaving you with less protection against the cold and explaining why winter seems to penetrate to your bones. Your metabolic rate, basically how fast your body produces energy and heat, drops by about 20% after 75, meaning you generate less internal heat precisely when you need it most. The most concerning part is that your body stops sending clear warning signals about temperature extremes, with studies showing that people over 75 often do not feel thirsty even when they are dehydrated and do not shiver effectively when they are cold, eliminating two essential survival mechanisms. To deal with this issue, experts recommend keeping the ambient temperature between 20 and 23 degrees Celsius year-round, which may feel warm in winter and cool in summer but represents the narrow comfort range your body can still maintain. Dressing in layers becomes essential because you need to adjust quickly, as your perception of temperature can change several times throughout the day due to fluctuations in blood pressure, medication effects, and activity levels. Hydration takes on new importance because your body uses water to regulate temperature. But since you do not feel thirsty, setting reminders to drink water every hour becomes essential, with the goal of consuming at least 1.5 liters per day regardless of thirst. Installing thermometers in different environments helps you rely on actual temperature instead of your internal sensors, which are no longer reliable. Many people also benefit from programmable thermostats that automatically adjust temperature throughout the day to match the body's needs. Exercise, paradoxically, becomes both more important and more dangerous. You need physical activity to maintain what remains of your temperature regulation capacity, but you must be extremely careful when exercising in extreme temperatures, with experts recommending indoor exercise whenever the outside temperature is below 5 degrees Celsius or above 24 degrees Celsius. Creating microenvironments with stable temperatures becomes essential, which means having a perfectly climate-controlled bedroom even if the rest of the house varies, and always carrying extra clothing and water when leaving home, because your margin of safety regarding temperature drops to nearly zero. Still, as challenging as temperature regulation is, it does not compare to what is happening inside your digestive system. Number 3, your digestive system enters permanent slowdown mode. The moment you turn 75, your entire digestive system enters what gastroenterologists call presbyesophagus and presbyenterism. Technical terms that basically mean all parts of your digestive tract begin to operate in slow motion permanently. Your esophagus, the tube that connects your mouth to your stomach, loses up to 50% of its muscle coordination, making swallowing no longer automatic but something that requires conscious effort. And that feeling of food getting stuck is not your imagination. It is your esophageal muscles literally forgetting how to work in sequence. Saliva production drops by about 40% after age 75, and since saliva contains important digestive enzymes that begin digestion before food even reaches the stomach, this means the digestive process is already impaired from the first bite. Your stomach begins to produce about 30% less acid after age 75, which may seem beneficial for those who suffer from heartburn, but this acid is essential for breaking down proteins, absorbing vitamin B12, iron, and calcium, and eliminating harmful bacteria in food. The most serious issue occurs in the small intestine, where finger-like projections called villi responsible for nutrient absorption shrink by up to 25%, creating what researchers call malabsorption syndrome, which affects nearly everyone over 75 to some degree. Your pancreas, responsible for producing enzymes that break down fats, proteins, and carbohydrates, reduces its output by about 40%, which explains why meals that never bothered you before now cause bloating and discomfort. The large intestine, or colon, also becomes problematic, with intestinal transit time increasing from the normal 30 to 40 hours to over 100 hours in people over 75, leading to chronic constipation that affects about 60% of this age group. The liver, although resilient, still loses about 30% of its mass and blood flow by age 75, becoming less efficient at processing medications and nutrients, which explains why doctors often need to adjust dosages in older patients. To deal with this slowdown instead of fighting it, eating smaller meals every 3 to 4 hours instead of 3 large ones helps your weakened digestive system handle the load better, with each meal ideally containing between 400 and 500 calories to avoid overwhelming your reduced enzyme production. Chewing becomes extremely important. Try to chew each bite about 30 times to compensate for reduced saliva and help mechanically break down food, since your chemical digestion is impaired. Adding digestive enzyme supplements with meals can replace what your pancreas no longer produces adequately. Many people also find relief with broad-spectrum enzymes taken about 15 minutes before eating. Probiotic foods stop being optional and become essential, with fermented foods like yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, and kimchi helping maintain gut microbiota diversity. However, you need to consume them daily, since the intestinal environment becomes more hostile and makes it harder for these beneficial bacteria to survive. Fiber strategy changes completely after age 75. Although you need it to maintain intestinal function, excess fiber can overload your slower system. That is why experts recommend gradually increasing soluble fiber intake from foods like oats, bananas, and sweet potatoes, while being cautious with raw vegetables, which become harder to digest. But while your digestive system faces difficulties, an even more serious change is happening to your balance. Number 2, your balance system undergoes irreversible deterioration. Starting at age 75, 3 different systems responsible for balance begin to fail simultaneously, in what researchers call a triple threat to stability, making falls not only likely but almost inevitable without intervention. The vestibular system in the inner ear, which contains small calcium crystals and fluid-filled canals that detect head position and movement, loses about 40% of its sensory cells by age 75, meaning your brain begins to receive confusing or delayed signals about your body's position in space. Proprioceptors in your muscles and joints, those sensors that tell your brain where your body parts are without needing to look, lose up to 50% of its sensitivity, which explains why you may misstep or misjudge distances you once perceived perfectly throughout your life. Vision's contribution to balance also drops drastically, with contrast sensitivity reduced by 60% and depth perception decreasing by 40%, making it harder to see edges, judge distances, and identify obstacles, especially in low-light environments. But the real problem occurs in the brain's integration center, where all these signals come together. The processing speed of balance-related information decreases by up to 70%, meaning that even when your sensors detect a problem, your brain cannot coordinate a response quickly enough to prevent a fall. Your ankle strategy, the first line of defense against small imbalances, weakens significantly as the muscles around your ankles lose about 40% of their strength and flexibility decreases by up to 50%, forcing your body to rely more on hip movements and corrective steps, which are less efficient and more likely to fail. The psychological factor worsens the situation even further after age 75. Fear of falling increases the risk of falls by 30% because anxiety creates muscle tension and reduces the natural, fluid movements needed to maintain balance. Blood pressure regulation also directly affects balance, with orthostatic hypotension, the dizziness when standing up, affecting about 30% of people over 75 and creating high-risk moments for falls during position changes. To combat this deterioration, balance training should become as routine as brushing your teeth, with specific exercises that challenge all 3 systems. Standing on one foot while turning your head challenges the vestibular system. Closing your eyes while standing challenges proprioception. And reaching exercises challenge visual and spatial integration. Dual-task training shows impressive results, where you perform balance exercises while carrying out cognitive tasks such as counting backward or naming animals, simulating real-life situations where you must maintain balance while thinking about something else. Tai Chi stands out as one of the best practices for people over 75, with studies showing it reduces fall risk by up to 45% because it combines slow, controlled movements, weight shifting, mental focus, and social interaction. Environmental modifications stop being optional and become mandatory. Remove loose rugs, install grab bars not only in the bathroom but also in hallways, improve lighting, especially on stairs and transition areas, and keep pathways free of obstacles. Footwear choice changes completely after 75, with proper shoes becoming almost medical equipment rather than fashion items. You need firm, non-slip soles, a low heel of no more than 2.5 centimeters, and secure fastening, with many experts recommending wearing proper footwear even indoors. The timing of activities also matters greatly. Your balance tends to be better in the late morning, after you have been moving for a few hours but before afternoon fatigue sets in. Scheduling more challenging activities during this time reduces the risk of falls. And now we reach the main change, the one that impacts all the others. Number 1, your muscle mass enters accelerated decline. At exactly 75, your body activates what scientists call accelerated sarcopenia, a kind of biological self-destruction sequence where you lose muscle mass at a rate of 3 to 5% per year, meaning that by age 80 you may have already lost up to 25% of your remaining muscle. And this is not just about appearing more fragile. It is about losing the tissue that determines whether you can stand up from a chair, climb stairs, or live independently. The shocking truth researchers at the National Institute on Aging discovered is that after 75, your body literally begins to consume its own muscle as a source of energy, even when you are consuming enough calories. This happens due to a phenomenon called anabolic resistance, where your muscles stop responding to protein and exercise as they once did, and your satellite cells, responsible for muscle regeneration, decrease by up to 70% after 75. This means that when muscle is damaged through daily activities, it simply does not rebuild, leading to permanent losses that accumulate over time. Type 2 muscle fibers, responsible for strength and fast movements like preventing a fall or standing up quickly, disappear twice as fast as type 1 fibers, which explains why simple tasks like opening a jar or getting up from a low chair become increasingly difficult. Your motor units, the connections between nerves and muscles, begin to disappear rapidly after age 75. And each lost unit represents dozens of muscle fibers that stop functioning permanently, without the body being able to replace them. The hormonal decline that occurs at age 75 makes this situation even worse. Testosterone drops to nearly non-existent levels in men. Growth hormone decreases by about 80%, and IGF-1, which is essential for muscle building, becomes so low that your muscles literally stop receiving the signal to grow, even when you exercise. Inflammatory markers such as interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor increase by up to 300% after age 75, creating a catabolic environment where the body is constantly breaking down muscle faster than it can rebuild it, regardless of diet or activity level. Mitochondria in muscle cells, responsible for energy production, decrease in number by about 50% and lose an additional 30% of their efficiency, meaning your muscles have about 65% less energy available for any activity, explaining that intense fatigue after small efforts. Protein synthesis, the process of building new muscle, decreases by up to 60% after age 75, meaning you need to consume much more protein than younger people just to maintain muscle mass, let alone increase it. Research shows that people over 75 need to consume at least 1.5 g of protein per kilogram of body weight, compared to 0.8 g for younger adults. The most concerning part is that muscle loss accelerates during any period of inactivity. Just 10 days of rest can cause the same muscle loss as 2 years of normal aging, and regaining that mass becomes extremely difficult due to anabolic resistance. To combat this decline, the timing of protein intake becomes critical, with studies showing you need to consume between 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein at each meal to stimulate muscle synthesis, and distributing this intake throughout the day is more effective than concentrating it at dinner. Leucine, an amino acid found in foods like eggs, chicken, and dairy, becomes essential after age 75 because it is the main trigger for muscle protein synthesis, requiring at least 3 g per meal to overcome anabolic resistance. Vitamin D also becomes crucial, as deficiency, affecting about 75% of people over 75, directly contributes to muscle weakness and accelerates sarcopenia, with studies showing that supplementation can improve muscle function by up to 20%. The timing of exercise also matters. Training in the morning, when cortisol is naturally higher and anabolic resistance is lower, produces better results than training in the afternoon or evening. Recovery periods need to be longer, with about 72 hours between training the same muscle group compared to 48 hours in younger individuals, since regeneration is slower. Maintaining muscle mass after 75 requires habits similar to those of an athlete, even if you do not feel like one, including consuming protein right after waking following a long overnight fast, eating protein before bed to prevent muscle breakdown overnight, and not going more than 4 hours without protein intake during the day. Understanding that this muscle loss happens to everyone helps eliminate guilt and frustration, because this is not about laziness or weakness. It is a programmed biological process that affects all humans who reach age 75. These 5 changes are not possibilities or probabilities. They are certainties that await everyone who reaches 75. But understanding these changes turns something frightening into something that can be managed. If this information opened your eyes to what really happens after 75, subscribe now so you do not miss the next video about specific exercises that can slow these changes by up to 40%. Turn on notifications to be alerted when new content is published, because your future depends on the decisions you make today. Thank you for watching, and remember, aging may be inevitable, but suffering from it does not have to be.